Welcome to the Bucket Plan on Demand, a podcast for financial advisors based on the best-selling book and process that simplifies financial planning. Hear from skilled industry professionals and special guests each episode that will help perfect your approach with clients and your results.
Hello, I'm Bryan Bibbo. In our previous episode, we began discussing the discover step of the holistic wealth management process. We had such a great conversation that we couldn't contain it all in one episode. Please enjoy as we continue the conversation on Discover.
We've covered the first part, which is kind of mutually making that connection, making sure, hey, I think I could see this person in my future. We covered the second part, which is more kind of agenda, time, outcomes of the meeting. Nobody's buying anything at the end of this meeting, all that kind of stuff. And now this next part, I think what we typically do is give you a little bit better idea of what our firm looks like. And now some of this is going to be customized to Alison Wealth or J.L. Smith, and we don't need to go into the details of that, of the team makeup and the offices, et cetera. But more globally, what we do is we do holistic wealth management, right? And there are 5 pillars to holistic wealth management. And Dave, do you want to maybe just give an overview of how we explain what those 5 pillars are, how they work together, and why it's important to have a holistic wealth management plan, which is tying all these things together, not working in silos, which what a lot of financial, tax, legal professionals have done is just siloed out, and nobody's quarterbacking, nobody's communicating. I think the ultra high net worth people have gotten this for decades, right? It's a family office. It's where you're pulling all resources together, all professionals, everybody's communicating, everything is connected, no balls get dropped, I's are dotted, T's are crossed. That's what holistic wealth management is. The difference of the 5 pillars of holistic wealth management and what we do is we're bringing it to people that aren't ultra high net worth. I mean, yes, we have some ultra high net worth clients, but the people that are hardworking American families that have saved, accumulated, earned their way to wealth that they want to protect and they want to grow into the future. And in order to do that, everything has to be connected. And that's what really, I think, these 5 pillars represent.
Yeah, they definitely do. And you made a good point. Like, as you look at the financial advisory landscape out there, you have what's known as kind of the wirehouse channel or the insurance company channel. And I think most people recognize those names. They typically are like 2 first names as their company name, or you see them sponsor the football stadium. And the people and the advisors that are affiliated with those firms really have an objective to represent the firm. They're selling products of the firm. So if I work for XYZ Mutual Insurance Company, I'm selling XYZ Mutual Insurance Company's products. If I work with ABC Investment Firm, I'm a broker selling their investment products. Well, if you look and kind of expand the universe, the next area that you can obtain financial services from is an RIA channel, a registered investment advisory channel. These are advisors who have one duty and one duty alone, and it's to represent and serve the client in a fiduciary capacity. They don't work for XYZ company. They work for the client. And now when we look at that model, we've really seen that there's a disconnect between the investment and the insurance and the taxes and the legacy planning and the overall financial planning and coordination. And so to really be a holistic wealth management firm, we've broken down these 5 pillars of, number 1, financial planning, helping you design a plan to get you from where you are to where you want to go in the most efficient manner. We call it the bucket plan, 3 simple buckets of money: a now bucket, a soon bucket, and a later bucket. Again, everyone's buckets are going to look a little different depending on where you are in life. Maybe you're a 25-year-old, maybe you're an 85-year-old, maybe you've accumulated $1 million, maybe you've accumulated $100 million, right? Everybody's goals and objectives and their personal circumstances are a little bit different, but everybody should have a plan of where they want to go and how they're going to get there. The next is asset management. I think we all recognize that we all want our money to grow at the greatest rate that we possibly can get, right? I've never had a client that said, hey, I want my investments to perform at a lower rate than maybe you get for other clients. Like, everybody wants this kind of maximum growth, but again, everybody's goals and objectives are different with their money and what their appetite for risk or volatility is, and the composition of the money they have. Maybe your assets are mostly in a business that you own. Maybe they're mostly in a 401k you've accumulated in. Maybe they're mostly in real estate. And so we bring asset management into the mix as one of our 5 pillars of holistic wealth management. The third is tax management, because it's not what you get to make, it's what you get to keep. And quite frankly, taxes are all of our largest expense, not only each and every year, but when you think about your lifetime bill, it'll make you dizzy, right? And so we want to focus on how we can proactively manage and mitigate taxes each and every year, as well as the lifetime taxes that our clients and their families ultimately have to pay. The next is protection planning for all the what ifs that come up in life, right? These are some of the blind spots that exist. It could be things like basic insurance coverage, term life insurance, or disability insurance, or your home and auto and property casualty insurance, as well as umbrella policies. It could be in the form of asset protection, like certain trusts, or how you establish a business entity like an LLC or an S corporation, or even how you own rental property. And then last but not least, that 5th pillar of our holistic wealth management process is something some of us don't really want to think about. It's legacy planning. And legacy planning is answering 3 simple questions. When we're gone, where does our stuff go? Who's in charge? And what are the rules, right? Where does it go? Who's in charge? And what are the rules? Now, there's a lot of complexity to this alone. Like, I have a lot of clients, Jason, and I know you probably do too, you guys. They want to die with 0. Like, when they get buried in the ground, their last check bounces and they want to spend everything. I have other clients who they want to leave a multi-generational, almost dynastical legacy to their grandkids and their great-grandkids, and they want to set up an educational fund or a health and maintenance fund so that the future generations have and can afford some of those benefits. And so when we bring all these together, this is why the Discover meeting is critical, because we want to discover what's most important to you. Are you a die with 0 candidate, or are you a multi-generational legacy planning type of candidate? Do you want more guarantees in your plan, or are you okay with rolling the dice and having more upside, but a lot more volatility as you think about entering into retirement? Do you want to self-insure for things like long-term care? Or do you want to buy insurance to have the peace of mind that that's taken care of? But again, the 5 pillars are the big differentiator, and all of those things end up feeding into the conversations that we're going to have throughout the Discover meeting so that we can then start to put the right formula and strategy and recommendations in place to be able to teach you about what some of your options are.
Yeah, Dave. And I know about half our relationships come from word of mouth, right? Someone has already been with the firm and they're referring a friend or a family member. So I love this part of the conversation just to really explain what we do, because as a kid, you ever play that game telephone? And you pass it along by the 5th, 6th, 7th person, it's a whole different message than you originally started with, right? So it comes down to that, is like you're hearing from someone else what we do, and they might be able to tell you 1 or 2 pillars, and they're like, just go see them, they'll explain it to you. But Dave, you really articulated it very well for everyone that's existing clients and new people that we're going to meet in the future, but it's that word of mouth, or maybe they read something, interpret it a certain way.
So Bryan, you're saying that our existing clients can't say it exactly the way that Dave just said it.
I think we'll have to send him a script on that one.
Well, I think I've probably done it 6,000 times. And here's the thing I want to stress, though, too, is you're listening to this and you think about these 5 pillars. And the instant thought might be one of being overwhelmed. Don't be overwhelmed. Like, this is a journey to build, and to Jason, your point earlier, like you and Holly's situation, to dot every I and cross every T. And as your life unfolds, these pillars change a little bit. Maybe your primary objective is securing your own retirement and your retirement income distribution plan when you're in your early 60s or mid 60s. But then as life evolves and now you're working with us and it's 10 or 15 years later and you start to have grandchildren, maybe some of your objectives change, and that legacy component, that pillar, becomes more important to you. So this is not something we wave a magic wand and all these 5 pillars are optimized in the most efficient way. It's a journey that we all go on together.
I mean, it's an excellent point, Dave, just to kind of land the plane on this kind of firm overview part of what we do when they come in for discovery is like Holly and I, when I was 40, right, when we went through the process initially of becoming a client of my own firm with Bryan and Chad, they took us kind of through the process. And now I'm 48 years old. And 8 years later, to your point, things have changed. Priorities have changed. The way how we look at things have changed.
You made me the beneficiary of all your accounts now, right?
Wait, I thought we were splitting those, Dave. I thought that was the agreement.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, 4 kids later.
Yeah, 4 kids later.
Yeah, exactly. 4 kids later. It just, I mean, you guys have advised, thousands of clients at this point. Like, life doesn't stay static, right? It's dynamic, it's evolving, and our clients' goals and objectives are always evolving.
All right, the next thing that we do is we start talking about what the goals and objectives are. Big picture, right? So we think of it in kind of a 3-year time frame. What needs to have happened for you to feel good about the progress that you made, right? Personally and professionally, financially, life in general. I mean, at the end of the day, the finances are just a tool to achieve your life's goals. So we want to understand what those life goals are and what that 3-year picture looks like. Then we talk about any dangers, concerns, or anything that you're worried about that we haven't discussed thus far, any opportunities. Also talk about strengths that you feel like are in your plan and in your life as in general, and what you personally, can rely upon and rely on each other for in regards to your own strengths that you're bringing to the relationship. That helps us to know you better, and it helps us to understand how to work with you going into the future. And then I think from there, we're really just going into the nuts and bolts of what your situation is with kids and grandkids and what their ages are, what legal documents you have in place, anything that might be a goal in regards to that legacy planning that you talked about in the 5 pillars, Dave. We want to dive a little bit deeper into that and understand what kind of goals or aspirations might be there.
Yeah, I think right now it's really the due diligence time, right? This is where we got to get an understanding of the nitty-gritty stuff. We talked about these big conceptual things, getting to know you as individuals, but now it's time to get into the details. What estate documents do you have in place? When were they updated? Who do you work for if you're currently working? How much you're contributing to 401ks? Your home, how much real estate do you have? How's it titled? Like, this is really where we get into more of the nitty-gritty, and it's our due diligence to get an understanding of where you're at and then where you want to be here in the future.
Well, and Bryan, the reason I love this section in the discovery process with clients is it gives us the opportunity to educate our clients on a lot of these things that, quite frankly, they probably just don't know what they are, what they mean, what their relevance is. I always use the analogy that maybe they have a lot of pieces of the puzzle, but they don't have the front of the box to give us kind of the roadmap of what it all looks like. So they might not know what a trust is, what a trust does, if they even need a trust. They might not have an understanding of how beneficiary designations are really important, or what a TOD, a transfer on death, or a payable on death designation is, right? So those are just a couple very, very small examples. But as we're going through this, again, starting like Jason said, looking big picture, almost having a little outer body experience. If we were sitting here 3 years from today, looking back to today, what's most important to you? Because sometimes it's very hard for us to conceptualize anything outside of our daily routine or our week or the 6 months or 12 months ahead of us. But then going through that inventory of all of these different things that need to come together to have one optimized plan. And again, using it as an opportunity to educate and to share the trade-offs of these things, right? Even the simple decision of like, are you participating in a traditional 401k or a Roth 401k? What's the difference between those? How does it impact your financial situation? Again, like just kind of a great opportunity to do a deeper dive.
I think even, again, going back to kind of Holly and I's situation, remembering going through this process is we have young kids, as you guys know. We have twin 6-year-olds, twin 8-year-olds. But on the other hand, we also have aging parents, right? And her parents are 79. My mom is 80, just turned 81. So we kind of have that responsibility as the older parents to help care for them, as well as knock on wood, our 3 parents are still independent, but still the worry, the thinking, the planning, what's going to happen? What are the financial effects going to be on us when they do need additional care or when they do pass on? And just understanding what the dynamics are of the family is so important to help build a really solid plan for the future, as well as longevity, right? We talked earlier about running out of money, understanding what the family history is and what a potential life expectancy might be. So from there, we ask about employment, making sure you're taking advantage of all the opportunities of matching. And we've talked a little bit more, and we won't go into detail in this episode about backdoor Roth and ways to funnel money into tax-free through your 401k, through your IRAs. So we want to understand what opportunities that you may or may not be taking advantage of, HSAs, etc. And then just understanding kind of like retirement, right? Like what's the target of when you'd like to retire? What's an ideal age? What's kind of a backup? What's an acceptable age? I mean, those are some of the additional things that we like to understand in the discovery meeting.
Yeah, and it's getting an understanding of the general understanding of what the financial assets are out there. What have you accumulated? How have you accumulated? Is there old pensions out there? What does your life insurance look like? Do you have umbrella policies on your home? Do you also have long-term care coverage? Have you had anyone go through a long-term care situation? And then get an understanding of maybe some of the professionals you already work with. Maybe you have a neighbor who's your lawyer that you've worked with for a long time. We had to get an understanding of who those existing relationships are so we can start blending everything together. And you might have a CPA that's done your taxes for 20 years and it's your best friend. Well, we're not here to step on those shoes, right? If you want to continue to maintain some of these relationships, we can be the quarterback and work with those individuals. But maybe you have that blank slate, right? Where I've kind of been piecemealing it, doing that silo mentality, Jason, that you referenced before. I got this person over here, this person over here. I'd really like you guys to help build it together.
And then from there, we inventory to get a better idea of how much pre-tax money you've accumulated. Again, it's like traditional IRA, 401k. You talked about that, Dave. Money you've never paid tax on. How much post-tax money you've accumulated. So money you paid tax on, but you didn't get it into a tax-free status. And then what monies you've actually been able to shelter or funnel into a tax-free status into the future, like HSAs and Roths and cash value inside of life insurance policies, etc. So getting a better idea of what that landscape looks like and what kind of planning's been done thus far there.
I think all of this just kind of comes together to say there's a lot of things that we need to understand based on the resources you've accumulated and the planning work that you may or may not have done thus far, so that then we can decipher which of those different pillars of holistic wealth management we're going to have to deliver to you to optimize your situation. Is it retirement income distribution and the most effective way to take money out of your accounts to maximize your income and minimize your taxes and provide you supplemental retirement income where you don't have to worry about running out of money in retirement? Is it coordinating and managing your investments and trying to optimize your portfolios or reduce your fees and expenses? Is it tax management, things like Roth conversions or tax harvesting, or making sure you're contributing to the right tax efficient accounts? Protection planning. Maybe you have a young family and there's some exposure that you don't have the proper insurance coverage for that what if in life. Or last but not least, you have accumulated enough for your lifetime and now you want to start thinking about legacy planning. Again, this is where we uncover all of those details and get a little bit more into the technical components of what you have, where you have it, why you have it, and what things that we might be able to do to bring value to being able to meet your goals and objectives.
And the last thing we typically like to ask too in this section of the meeting before we kind of move on to the next part of this discovery process is understanding, what type of plan do you have in writing now? Has someone put a written plan, financial modeling, tax modeling? Is there ever been, or is there a plan you're following? And are we on track or are we off track? Some people do have a plan and we review it and we can see, are they on track or off track? Some people don't even have a plan in writing. And then obviously that may be one of the main reasons you're sitting with us today is to get that written holistic wealth management plan covering all areas in writing so we have kind of a roadmap to follow going forward.
Well, and I think in writing and validated, just a quick example of that is I had a client that, I asked that question to, has anyone ever put a plan in writing for you? And they were like, yeah, our previous advisor kind of puts a statement together of all of our investments, and it's a pie chart of how we're allocated, and it gives a projection of how much income this portfolio might be able to support. And I said, okay, great, and made note of it. And when we went into our design phase and we started to build out the bucket plan, and of course we educated him on the 3 buckets, his now bucket, which was his safe and liquid money, his emergency fund, his money for the first year in retirement. His soon bucket was going to be invested for growth to help offset inflation, just invested more conservatively and really built to drive and provide reliable income through the first phase of retirement. And then, of course, his later bucket was all the rest of the money that was really invested for long-term growth and potentially legacy planning, which for this particular client, legacy planning for the kids and the grandkids was not of particular importance to him. He was more that like, me and my wife want to spend every cent we have, and if anything's left for them, it's left for them, but we raised them, we paid for their college, we've taken care of them our whole lives. And so when we got into step 2 and actually designed his written plan, and then we validated it, we showed that based on the assets he accumulated and she accumulated and what their income needs were, they didn't risk running out of money as long as both of them were alive. But when we stress tested the plan against one of the 2 spouses prematurely passing away, we went from 100% probability of success down to a 70% probability of success. And that was solely because most of their money was pre-tax money. And when one spouse passed away, the surviving spouse went from married filing jointly to a single filer, and all of their tax rates went exponentially up, which ended up depleting some of their savings at a quicker clip. And so these are the things that when we talk about having a written plan in place, whether it's a written accumulation plan or whether it's a written distribution plan, and then validating it, it makes all the difference in the world for peace of mind. It's one thing to have a plan. It's another thing to have a plan that's been stress tested. And I think 2008 and 2009 showed us the importance. It's why every major bank out there has to be stress tested now after 2008, 2009. Your plan needs to have a stress test to it as well.
As we're starting to kind of land the plane, so we've kind of gone through all the way through the discovery of really understanding what their situation is, everything we've covered up to this point. And now what we need to do is describe what the rest of the process kind of looks like and some of the things that we're going to do and why we need to do it. So in particular, for example, if we're talking to someone who is 10 years or less out from retirement and really needs to start preserving a portion of their assets in preparation to be able to draw off those assets in retirement, if that's the intention or the need, we talk about the money cycle. And we talk about the money cycle has 3 phases: accumulation, preservation, distribution. And the biggest mistake people make is they go from accumulation right into distribution. And they never preserve a portion of the assets that they'll need to draw off of in that first phase of retirement. And so how do we mitigate that risk? What do we do? It is the bucket plan. It is not the process, the holistic wealth management process that we're taking you through, but more specifically, it's actually positioning your money time segmented into a now, a soon, and a later bucket. Because the now bucket's going to be your safe and liquid money. We're not going to invest it. We're just going to try to earn the highest interest rate while remaining safe and liquid. Emergency fund, planned expenses. We want to make sure that we have that money set aside so we can put our head on the pillow at night. The second bucket, the soon bucket, is the preservation bucket. That soon bucket is the money that we can take income or withdrawals from with total confidence throughout that first phase of retirement, not have to worry about the ups and downs of the market. And that's the bucket that a lot of people are missing. And it's important to fund that bucket to give us the confidence, because now we bought ourselves a time horizon between the now and the soon bucket. We have total confidence to invest our money in the later bucket and make good decisions to be able to take on volatility, to earn the best rate of return that we can, and to be able to do tax planning strategies that are going to benefit us in retirement and benefit our family upon our passing. And so the importance is segmenting into now, soon, and later bucket your assets so you can make good decisions of how you invest that money.
Absolutely. It's so important. I mean, just having the confidence, again, markets are always going to be choppy. It's the nature of capital markets. But again, where investors really get hurt is they make bad decisions with their money at times when there is the most fear, panic, or volatility in the market. And by having a now and a soon bucket, no matter what age you are, Jason, your example was great for somebody getting ready to retire. I turned 40 this year. I hope I have 50 more years before I have to think about retiring because I love what I do. But I still have a soon bucket. And of course I have a now bucket, right? For me, maybe it looks a little different. Maybe it's an opportunity bucket. Maybe it's where I'm saving to buy my house or upgrade to a bigger house or buy a vacation home or fund my kids' college education. It's any money I will need sooner rather than later, but it necessarily isn't a preservation bucket. And so the bucket plan can be so flexible, and it's the basic financial principles of making sure you have the right behavior as you start to think about how you're going to deploy your capital, whether it's into banks and savings accounts and money market and treasuries, or whether it's into things like stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, private equity, alternative investments, life insurance, right? Real estate, the list goes on of these places that we can deploy our capital. But the bucket plan gives us a framework to think about that.
And Bryan, what's the next thing that we talk about typically in preparation for coming in for the next meeting when they come in for design?
I think just to summarize what you both talk about, our goal is to simplify this, right? Our goal is to simplify your financial plan. You got all these complexities in it, but with the bucket plan, it simplifies it, right? And then when we talk about coming in for the next meeting, one of the things that we do for everyone, whether it be digitally or we actually do it physically, is what we call a family estate organizer. So what Dave's holding it up. There you go, Dave. And the purpose here is to get all the documents in one place. And then we have a table of contents of all those documents. And we've given the examples of a married couple. Maybe one of the spouses doesn't know exactly what's going on. It helps bridge that gap and get them on the same page. Or as a single individual, if I'm gone tomorrow, do my children or my beneficiaries know where everything's at or where to turn to? It's solidifying all those documents in one place. I joke with people, I say, this is the family Bible going forward. Like your beneficiaries, your executor need to know exactly where this is at. So the purpose of that family estate organizer is to get everything in all one central location and then get a husband and wife or a couple on the same page. And then the secondary thing is like, hey, you tell your executor where this is at and you go, hey, go bring it to Alison Wealth Management, C2P, JL Smith, to be able to help solve this once I'm gone.
You know, Bryan, I unfortunately a week and a half ago had a client pass away, the husband. He was in his late 60s. And we had taken him through the bucket plan holistic wealth management process a few years ago. We built the family estate organizer. He handled most of the finances. She did not. And we just last week did a review meeting with her now, her first meeting ever as a widow, meeting with us and our team. And we pulled out the family estate organizer. We went through all the accounts that were in his name, and we went through everything we need to do to settle it. Well, I got a message after from her daughter, right? So the mom is the client of mine, mom and dad were. The daughter said, I just got off the phone with mom. If anyone hasn't told you, the peace of mind you've given her during this objectively shit time has been incredible. We're very grateful for you, and I know she is too. Thank you. And this was just, again, getting the two of them organized into this mutual filing system where I think we all think we're a bit invincible. I know I don't think anything's going to happen to me anytime soon, but it's for that what if in life that gets the two of the spouses or ultimately the children fully organized and in tune to what's going on.
And the last thing that we do is we take the client through an exercise, and it's called the Concerns and Priorities Worksheet. And so this is an interactive exercise that an individual or a couple will do where they go through and they rank all the most common concerns and priorities that other clients have told us throughout the years. And they just rank it, either priority number 1 being most important, number 3 not important at all, or number 2 it's important, but after we tackle the ones. So they go through and they tell us what the number 1s are, and that really helps us set the agenda for the next meeting when they come in for design.
I just want to share, I think that what I've seen in kind of wrapping up a Discover meeting with this is that because the Discover meeting was so educational in nature, by the time we address some of these priorities and concerns at the end, a lot of clients actually have this self-realization that they do have quite a few things that are number 1 priorities and concerns that maybe they didn't even know of prior to coming in. I gave that example earlier of legacy planning for the surviving spouse and the impact of taxes when one spouse passes away. So that's just a simple example, but the things that we talk about here, running out of money in retirement, inflation reducing purchasing power, not making enough on your money, a large market drop, how to draw money from your investments in the most tax efficient manner. Like those are some of the things that we've heard time and time again from other clients just like you. And we want to be able to identify which of these things are truly a number 1 concern or priority for you. Because guys, what do we do with this information?
Yeah, it allows us to get laser focused on what's in your minds, what's in your hearts, and address those concerns. but it also allows us to take some things that are maybe your medium concerns or your not concerns at all and put them on the back burner maybe in future years. But we want to make sure we're laser focused on those things that, as Jason said, the number one is the primary concerns, so we can build out the plan accordingly to that. Because we want to make sure your time is well spent, and so is ours. And if we spend the time on the things that you care about the most, the things that are on your mind, and maybe even they keep you up at night, our time is well spent together.
Yep. And the whole goal is to turn those number ones into number threes when we're done taking you through the process. So as parting gifts, if you haven't received one already, we'll give you a copy of the Bucket Plan book, which is a true story of a client that we took through the process. U.S. News and World Report just in 2023 ranked it top 10 retirement planning books that are available to you. The other thing we'll give you is we'll give you a folder with the requested documents checklist of what you'll need to bring into the next meeting, along with other information about our firm and other reading material that you might want to see. And then we go ahead and book the next meeting. We go ahead and book the next time to go ahead and start in the design process.
So Jason, I know you mentioned when we started the episode, this is Discover. This is that first meeting, typically 60 to 90 minutes together, either on Zoom or in person. And we're going to, for anyone who's interested in diving a little deeper into the other steps of the process, we're going to be recording subsequent podcast episodes there.
Yeah, and they're going to be a lot shorter because at the end of the day, the discovery. So again, when we teach this, when Bryan and Dave now teach this to other financial advisors that come in throughout the year from all around the country, they fly in for Bryan and Dave to teach this. It's a 2-day class. We spend the entire first day on discovery. And then the second day is design and delivery and dedicated, because there is so much education and so much importance of getting to know the goals and priorities and family history and so many other things. And so you'll see in the next podcast, they're going to be short and sweet, but still giving you an overview of what's going to happen in design, in delivery, and then ultimately in the dedicated phase.
That's great. So to keep an eye out for that, don't forget, subscribe to our podcast channel, follow us on YouTube. These are all the places that this content will be posted. And also, if this is something that you want to take advantage of, reach out to our office and we can get you scheduled to begin the process of that complimentary call and then move forward if we mutually decide that it makes sense to go through this Discover meeting.
All right. And thanks for joining us on this podcast today, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for tuning in to the Bucket Plan on Demand, brought to you by C2P, an organization whose purpose is to educate, train, grow, and support holistic financial advisors so families can achieve true prosperity. Subscribe today for the latest episodes and insights. Visit C2PEnterprises.com to learn how we can help support and enhance your advisory business. At the time of delivery and any subsequent publishing, information was deemed reliable but is subject to change by the time of listening or viewing. The contents of this piece include options and projections of C2P, are subject to change, and are for informational purposes only. The information provided in this presentation is not intended to be individual investment, tax, or legal advice.